The late autumn sun hung low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, casting a golden glow across fields of swaying wheat. Ethan Caldwell, a man whose calloused hands told stories of hard labor and harder years, stepped out of his battered pickup truck, the engine ticking as it cooled. His boots crunched against the gravel driveway of the small, weathered house he'd rented on the edge of town. It wasn't much, a sagging porch, peeling paint, and windows that rattled in the wind. But for Ethan and his 6-year-old daughter Lily, it was a chance to start over. His chest tightened with a mix of hope and exhaustion as he glanced at Lily, her dark curls bouncing as she scrambled out of the truck, clutching a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Whiskers. Her wide hazel eyes sparkled with curiosity, scanning the unfamiliar landscape. "Daddy, do you think there's magic here?" she asked, her voice bright with wonder. Ethan forced a smile, though his heart ached at her innocence. "Maybe, kiddo," he said, ruffling her hair. "Let's find out." They'd arrived in Willow Creek the night before, fleeing the ghosts of a life that had crumbled after Lily's mother, Sarah, died in a car accident 3 years earlier. Ethan had spent those years drifting, taking odd jobs to keep them afloat, but the grief clung to him like damp earth. Willow Creek, with its quiet charm and endless fields, felt different, steady, like it could hold them without breaking. A job had come through almost immediately, a godsend for a man who needed work to keep his mind from wandering to darker places. A woman named Abigail Harper, who owned a sprawling farm on the outskirts of town, needed someone to repair an old barn. Ethan, a carpenter by trade, had jumped at the chance. Work was work, and for now, it was enough. The drive to Harper Farm was a study in beauty. The road wound through fields ablaze with fiery reds and oranges, the trees standing like sentinels against the crisp autumn sky. Ethan's shoulders relaxed as the scenery unfolded, a rare moment of peace settling over him. Lily hummed in the passenger seat, her small voice filling the cab with a melody he couldn't place but loved all the same. When the farm came into view, Ethan slowed the truck, his breath catching. The farmhouse was a vision of faded elegance, white clapboard, a wraparound porch, and windows that glowed warmly in the morning light. Beyond it stood the barn, its red paint chipped and its roof sagging like an old man's shoulders. It was a wreck, but Ethan saw potential in its sturdy frame, a chance to build something solid. Waiting by the barn was Abigail Harper, her presence as commanding as the land itself. She stood with her arms crossed, her flannel shirt tucked into worn jeans, her auburn hair pulled into a loose braid. Her face was striking, not in a polished way, but in the quiet strength of someone who'd weathered storms of her own. Her green eyes, sharp and searching, met Ethan's as he climbed out of the truck, and he felt a jolt, like she could see straight through the walls he'd built around himself. "Ethan Caldwell?" she asked, her voice steady but warm, like a fire on a cold night. He nodded, extending a hand roughened by years of work. "That's me. You must be Abigail Harper." Her grip was firm, her smile faint but genuine. "Thanks for coming out. This barn's seen better days, but I'd like to keep it standing." Ethan glanced at the structure, his practiced eye assessing the damage. "Mind if I take a look?" Abigail gestured for him to go ahead, and he stepped inside, the scent of aged wood and hay wrapping around him. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the roof, dust motes dancing in the beams. He ran a hand along a support beam, tapping it lightly. "Solid. The bones are good," he called out, turning to her. "Roof needs work, and some boards should be replaced before winter, sir, but it's fixable." Abigail nodded, her expression thoughtful, as if she were weighing more than just his words. "I'll help where I can," she said. "I'm no carpenter, but I can swing a hammer." Ethan smirked, a flicker of amusement breaking through his usual reserve. Not many landowners get their hands dirty. She met his gaze, unflinching. "I don't like standing still." As they discussed the repairs, Lily wandered the property, her sneakers kicking up clouds of fallen leaves. Near the farmhouse, she spotted a scruffy terrier curled up under the porch steps, its fur matted but its eyes bright. "Daddy, look!" she squealed, crouching to extend a cautious hand. The dog sniffed her fingers, then wagged its tail, and Lily's face lit up with pure joy. Abigail chuckled, a sound that softened the edges of her guarded demeanor. "That's Scout. Showed up one day and never left." Lily's eyes widened. "Can we keep him, Daddy? Please?" Ethan hesitated, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. But the way Lily clung to Scout, the way the dog leaned into her touch, made his heart twist. "We'll see, kiddo," he said, glancing at Abigail. Her smile held something unspoken, a quiet understanding that made him pause. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the farm, Ethan found himself lingering. There was something about this place. The way Abigail spoke of it with fierce devotion, the way Lily had already made it her playground, that stirred a longing he hadn't felt in years. He'd spent so long running, searching for a place where he and Lily could belong. Maybe Willow Creek was that place. Maybe this farm, with its battered barn and its resolute owner, was where they'd finally stopped drifting. Abigail, watching him from the corner of her eye, felt a similar pull. She'd been alone for so long, keeping the world at arm's length. But Ethan and Lily brought a warmth she hadn't known she missed. As Ethan loaded Lily into the truck, Abigail spoke before she could stop herself. "I make a mean peach cobbler," she said, her voice softer than usual. "If you're around this weekend, maybe you and Lily could come by." Ethan met her gaze, a slow smile spreading across his face. "We'd like that." The next morning, the rhythmic thud of Ethan's hammer echoed through the crisp air as he worked on the barn. The structure was coming together, each nail driven with purpose, each plank a small victory. He lost himself in the familiar rhythm, the cool morning air keeping his mind clear. The crunch of boots on gravel broke his focus, and he turned to see Abigail approaching, a thermos in hand. "Coffee?" she offered, pouring him a cup. The rich aroma curled between them, and Ethan took a sip, nodding his approval. "Strong," he said. Abigail smirked. "I don't do weak coffee." He studied her, noting the way her eyes lingered on the barn, not just seeing its flaws, but its history. "This place means a lot to you, doesn't it?" he asked. She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the thermos. "It's been in my family for generations. My grandfather built this barn. My parents kept it alive. I grew up here, running through these fields, learning to love this land." Her voice softened, heavy with memory. "It's just me now." Ethan didn't press. He knew loss too well, the way it carved out pieces of you and left them hollow. Instead, he returned to his work, and for the next few hours, they labored side by side. Abigail wasn't skilled, but she was determined, holding beams steady, passing tools, learning as she went. Her willingness to try, to fight for this place, sparked something in Ethan. Admiration, maybe, or something deeper he wasn't ready to name. By mid-morning, Lily arrived with Scout trailing behind, her laughter filling the air as she declared the dog her official farm buddy. Abigail watched them play, a rare smile softening her features. "She's got your spirit," she said to Ethan. He chuckled, but his heart swelled with pride and a pang of fear. Lily was his world, and keeping her safe meant staying grounded, no matter how much this farm pulled at him. As the afternoon wore on, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, the wind picking up with a restless energy. Abigail frowned, glancing skyward. "Storm's coming." Ethan nodded, securing their work. "This barn won't hold in high winds." Lily groaned, but Abigail's smile was reassuring. "It'll be here tomorrow, kid." As the first raindrops fell, Abigail hesitated, then said, "You and Lily should come for dinner sometime. This house could use some company." Ethan's chest warmed at the invitation, simple but genuine. "Yeah," he said, "we'd like that." The storm hit hard that night, rain lashing the fields and wind howling through the trees. By morning, Willow Creek was cloaked in a misty haze, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. Ethan stood at the window of their rented house, sipping coffee as Lily chattered about Scout and pancakes. Her excitement was a balm to his restless heart. That evening, they arrived at Harper Farm for dinner, the farmhouse glowing warmly against the fading light. Abigail greeted them at the door, a streak of flour on her cheek, her sleeves rolled up. She looked softer, less guarded, and Ethan felt a flutter of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "Perfect timing," Abigail said, ushering them inside. The house was cozy, filled with the scent of roasted chicken and fresh bread, its walls lined with old photos and books stacked haphazardly. It felt like a home, and Ethan's throat tightened at the thought. Dinner was simple but warm, the kind of meal that filled more than just the stomach. Lily devoured her food, declaring it better than pancakes, and Abigail's laugh was like sunlight breaking through clouds. As they ate, Lily pointed to a black and white photo on the mantel. "Who's that?" Abigail's smile faded slightly. "My father, Samuel Harper. He built this farm, made it what it is. Her voice carried a weight, a story she wasn't ready to tell. Ethan noticed the way her fingers curled around her glass, the flicker of loss in her eyes. He knew that look, the one that came when memories were too heavy to hold. Lily, unburdened by such things, asked softly, "Is he still here?" Abigail shook her head. "He passed a few years ago." Lily's face fell. "I'm sorry." Abigail's smile returned, small but genuine. "Thank you, Lily." After dinner, Ethan and Abigail stood on the porch, watching Lily chase Scout through the yard. The night was quiet, the stars peeking through the clouds. "Thanks for tonight," Ethan said, his voice low. "It's been a while since we had a meal like that." Abigail leaned against the railing, her gaze distant. This house needed it too. A pause settled between them, heavy with unspoken truths. "You don't talk much about your past," she noted. Ethan exhaled, the weight of it pressing down. Not much to say, but her steady gaze pulled the words from him. "Lily's mom died in an accident. She was 3. I've been running from it ever since." Abigail's expression softened, understanding without pity. "You're doing right by her," she said. "She's a great kid." Ethan's chest ached, but her words anchored him. They stood in silence, the night wrapping around them, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he wasn't alone. Days passed, and the barn repairs neared completion. Ethan worked with a quiet focus, each nail a step toward something solid. Abigail was there every day, her presence steady but charged with something new. Warmth, maybe, or trust. One afternoon, as they planted wildflower seeds with Lily, Abigail shared a piece of her past. "My mother loved gardening," she said, her voice soft. "She called it planting hope." Ethan glanced at her, seeing the shadow of grief. "She passed when I was young," Abigail added, and Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of those words. They worked in silence, the act of planting seeds a quiet promise of growth, of something new taking root. But trouble was brewing. A sleek black sedan pulled up one afternoon, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. Nathaniel Reed, a name Ethan had heard whispered in town. Abigail stiffened, her easy demeanor replaced by wariness. "Stay here," she murmured to Ethan, striding toward the man. Ethan couldn't hear everything, but the tension was clear. "You're wasting your time, Nathaniel," Abigail said, her voice cold. Reed's smile was sharp. "This farm's a gold mine, Abigail. It's time to let it go." Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't know the full story, but he didn't like the way Reed spoke, like he owned something that wasn't his. Stepping forward, Ethan asked, "Everything okay?" Abigail's glance held gratitude, and Reed's eyes flicked to him, dismissive. "And you are?" Ethan held his gaze. "Someone who doesn't like bullies." Reed smirked but left, his parting words a warning. "Think about it, Abigail." Later, Abigail explained. Reed had been her father's business partner, funneling money into the farm's expansion, but leaving debts that haunted her after her father's death. Now, Reed was pressuring her to sell, using his influence to cut off suppliers and block loans. Ethan's anger flared, but so did his resolve. "We'll fight this," he said. Abigail's eyes searched his, hesitant but hopeful. "Why do you care?" Ethan shrugged, his voice steady. "Because I know what it's like to lose something that matters." The fight took shape quickly. Ethan rallied the town, spreading word of Reed's threats. The Harper farm wasn't just land, it was Willow Creek's heart. People responded, showing up with supplies, labor, and support. A weekly market was born, transforming the farm into a bustling hub of vendors and families. Laughter filled the air, and Abigail, overwhelmed by the support, felt a spark of hope she'd thought long extinguished. One evening, as the volunteers left, she sat with Ethan on the porch, the fields stretching before them. "They showed up," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan nodded. "They did." She turned to him, her eyes searching. "Why do you care so much?" He leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. "I've been running a long time, Abigail. This place it feels like something worth staying for." Her breath caught, and softly she said, "I don't want you to leave." Ethan brushed his fingers against hers, and she didn't pull away. Reed returned, his confidence unshaken. "This market won't stop me," he sneered. "The county's listening. Eminent domain's coming." Abigail's pulse raced, fear clawing at her, but Ethan's voice was firm. "He's bluffing, and if he's not, we fight harder." The town doubled down, the market growing, petitions circulating. When Reed's final play for eminent domain came, the community's opposition was overwhelming. The county rejected his claim, and the farm was safe. Weeks later, as spring approached, Abigail stood with Ethan and Lily by the garden. Tiny green sprouts broke through the soil, the wildflowers they'd planted together. Lily's eyes shone. Miss Abigail said, "You have to believe in what you can't see yet." Abigail's throat tightened, her hand resting on Ethan's. "We planted more than flowers that day," he said softly. She smiled, her heart full. "I think we did." The Harper farm thrived, the market a weekly tradition, Lily and Scout inseparable. Ethan and Abigail rebuilt not just the land, but a life together, each day a step towards something lasting. One evening, as they watched the sunset, Abigail leaned against him. "This was always home," she said. "I just didn't know how lonely it was." Ethan's arm tightened around her. "You're not alone anymore." And as the stars emerged, they knew some battles were worth fighting, some seeds worth planting, for they bloomed into something beautiful beyond imagining. Hey, if you love this story, hit that like button and subscribe to H Stories for more heartwarming tales. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for reading, and we'll see you in the next one.